do you see there being a rise in natural disasters?
To some degree, the Earth is about to go through some changes. We have a very interesting moment right now in history because extra dimensionals and the aliens that are coming through and channeling are saying that it's a frequency war and that this is a problem all over the place. This choice of which way are we going to go.
What do you think of there being another global health scare, like another COVID? Do you see that?
I have a team of psychics, Serious Joy. We don't feel that, and I don't feel like the world population would tolerate it.
Do you feel like there is going to be a downfall of America as a civilization or world power?
I feel the United States prevails, and the astrology shows the same. We've got about 18 months. It's going to be very uncomfortable, it looks like. Very uncomfortable.
This is the episode you don't want to miss to know what's really going to go down in 2025 as predicted by one of the world's top-ranked psychic astrologers, Christopher Witecki.
Trust flow, surrender, let go. Yeah. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the High Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spiritual concepts and make them modern, fun, grounded, and relatable. Now, something I've been diving into my entire spiritual journey has been astrology. And I'm sure you have too. It's kind of a spiritual gateway. But specifically for me, I remember I actually went to this health clinic and he told me, he was like, you should get this app that they text you 5 times a day according to what is happening uniquely in your chart. And I'm like, that sounds perfect. Sounds like exactly what I need. And I began the service and it was crazy. It was eerily weird because I would be doing something and it would be like, you just had a profound breakthrough in your life. And I'm like, that's correct. To the point that it's like, you're getting on a flight right now. It's almost like that, and more recently when I am going to be moving, it's time for you to set up for this whole new world that you're in. I'm like, how does it know? It knows everything. So now I just have all of my friends get on this app but I started to get a little bit more curious about this app. How does it actually know everything? So they had this database where this guy who was so funny and just so cosmic, he was an alien incarnated in human form, and he had daily pep talks of what was happening and these mega monthly reports. So I just started to dive in. This was back in 2019 when I began this, and then COVID hit. And I was like, what's going on? And he was just explaining through an astrological perspective what was happening and the shift that we're in and the way it's impacting our health and the global collective. And I just, even more so, I started listening every single day. And it really supported me in this time of unknown to help me see that there are bigger cosmic forces at play. And since then, so now it's been 6 years that I have been every single day on this app and platform. And I've had the founder on the podcast before, but that was back when we were on Zoom still. And now he's here with us in person. So he's my personal astrology teacher. Number one person I recommend in the field who just has such an intuitive way of understanding your chart. It just speaks to him. And on top of that, he's just an incredible spiritual teacher. And I have been really thinking about the themes of what's coming up in 2025. I feel 2024 has been a very big year as well. And he's shared that 2025 is actually building upon a lot of the themes that we've seen in this collective. So in this episode, we're going to dive deep into the themes of 2025, how they're impacting you specifically, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format. So if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. So without further ado, let's welcome Christopher Witecki, Sensei Christopher, to the Highest Self Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm honored, especially to be in person now.
You're the only person I would fangirl over, so I'm fangirling. You're the only celebrity in my life.
I think it's the time I've seen it, so I'm feeling really privileged.
Yay. So I want to dive into, 2025, some themes that you're seeing. And I know you said they're really related to building upon what's happened. So can you share a little bit with us?
Yeah, sure. I think it actually starts in 2024. It's been kind of a smooth year externally, in the outer world for us, because 2024 was all inner world. And the big profound thing about 2024 is that Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces which is, 30 years for Saturn. And the last time Neptune was in Pisces was just before the Civil War. Its orbit is so large. It's sort of a moral ground that Neptune in Pisces resets, and back then it was the moral ground of, I think, slavery and other things. And this time, I think it's the moral ground of people taking control of their own lives, right? So this year, what's been interesting is this has been a year of facing our own stuff, getting to the core of our rhythms, getting to where we let ourselves down. It's our relationship to ourselves that we've been working on. And people have either worked on it or they haven't, right? So that sets the stage, actually, worked on it or haven't. Or even more specifically, what I define it as is are my problems the world's cause or are my problems my cause? That's really the core of it. I think the core moral shift of this Neptune and Pisces, right? Who is God? Who am I the God or is God outside of me, right? So that setup has been splitting the population, especially in the United States. I think, I don't know other countries if it's as much, but I know there's a lot of separation going on. And it's because people are putting themselves in these different camps. So what happens is as we move through the end of the year, as the end of the year of 2024 happens, basically the outer world consequences start to build from people's inner world choices, right? So people start choosing for themselves, they start opting out of certain systems. And one example of that is Pluto coming back into Capricorn, which happens, the whole stretch of it, started, I can't remember exactly when it started. I think it was September 1st, actually, exactly. And we'll go to November 19th, that stretch.
Of 2024.
Of 2024, yeah, the setup. Wherever, and that stretch is ultimately people opting out of power, like certain power structures. And this could be that you just are not going to allow, you're not going to allow the homeowners association to tell you what to do, or you don't care, you're turning off the news about the elections, which I think is really popular right now. You're walking away from broadcast news because you're deciding you will decide who the news is or what is quality news. So there's a lot of people taking their power back, really, where it's sort of been, encroached upon by corporations and things like that. So as we go into the end of the year, say November, December 2024, it's a rewriting of what people want to do. We have a Mars retrograde and a Mercury retrograde in December of 2024. So that is really the essence of, I don't know if I should think about these things the way it have been. This isn't the right way to look at it. This isn't the right way to think about it. And Mars retrograde is a huge retrograde because it's our momentum. It's our strength. It's what we put our energy into. It starts in Leo, right in the early degrees of Leo. So it's basically us stirring that we're having a change of heart. We don't want to chase after those certain things anymore. And then it goes into Cancer in the high degrees of Cancer in its end. And it ends on February 28th, 2025. So this very slow, quiet, I don't want to say somber, but it kind of feels just psychically that December is going to be mellow, which makes most teams, on our team in particular, feel like there's going to be a conflict. There would be a conflict with the election or something undecided, because it seems like we're wading through into 2025. So 2025 starts off with this like waiting game, nothing moving, just still water, and people not moving forward, not knowing what to move forward with, what to chase after. And I think that's because there's in 2025, the big theme is based on individual choices inside themselves. Now the powers that be either have people behind them or don't. So there's a bit of a chaos, not a chaos, but I would say a panic, from those who are in power, in the sense of not really having their constituents or their followers all the way in alignment anymore.
So it's going to start off with people kind of maybe not sure where to focus their energy. Maybe there's some uncertainty around the election. So there's sort of this like energetic standstill of how do I move ahead? How do I not? But then also a split in consciousness of people who have chosen that I am my own president and I actually create my own reality, versus people who are waiting to live their lives based on who's elected president, as if that's actually going to make a big difference in their life. It makes as big of a difference as you allow it to.
Completely. And, it's funny that this particular conflict, we have a very interesting moment right now in history because right now, the planet Pluto is where it was in the American Revolution, Pluto in Capricorn at the moment. And Pluto in Aquarius also was the American Revolution up till Pluto 4 degrees. So if this were the American Revolution, it'd be going for another 2 years, right? This transit. And all of us agree that we're going to be in some sort of a, it depends on who says it, but, extra dimensionals and the aliens that are coming through and channeling are saying that it's a frequency war, that that this is a galactic thing, that this is a problem all over the place as far as taking the low road or taking the high road. And they've also talked about how this is the moment for them, like, because Earth is a big playground in that regard. So it seems to be even galactic, this choice of which way are we going to go, which is a reductionist perspective. We're going to keep dissecting, keep breaking things apart, breaking things to understand them, or raising the vibration, seeing where we can go with a higher vibration. So I think what happens in the very beginning of 2025 is people are leaving the country. You know what I mean? Like, lots of people are going to, I think, leave where they have been. A lot of migration, a second wave of migration. I feel like one that's more informed. We had a big migration in, with COVID. People sort of settled around the country, took shelter. I think this would be another wave. There would probably be people who were reluctant the first time and realize I'm not doing it again. So I think the beginning of that quiet time from January to February 25th, people are planning on doing something, but they don't feel it's time to do it. They don't feel the motivation to do it just yet. So I think there's a lot of tension building behind the scenes.
Do you see a revolution happening in the United States?
I don't, actually. I really don't. And we've talked about this. We've grown out of it. Like, the human race has grown out of it, at least in the United States. I feel like violence is no longer necessary. If you talk to most people, even though there's people that carry guns and whatnot, the truth is that's always been the case, ex-military and things like that. I don't really feel there's a growing population of militia. And I also don't feel like at least in America, I can't speak for the world, but I go around, I'm traveling all this whole year, like more than I've ever have. And nobody is blaming each other. They're actually blaming the leaders, and they're mad at the leaders. They're not mad at each other. They understand. They'll call them, the stupid or whatever. So they're still looking down, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, Age of Aquarius prophecy, right, is that it's not that we all get along. It's that we all decide to take different corners. That it's like, okay, we're going to go over here, we're going over there. And a lot of, again, extra dimensional discussions that come in is that we move into small pocket communities. We no longer live in cities. So I think we're going to start to feel the migration to this new way of living, which might be some people just want the new way of living and they don't realize that spirit is coming with that. It's different, values are coming with that. So some people are very aware of the values that they're choosing, like yourself. And some people just want the cool new, way to live, but they're vibrationally attracted to the same thing.
Do you feel like there is going to be a downfall of America as a civilization or world power?
I feel like there's going to be I think this is our moment. I think California is having its moment too. I think every shining place has a moment where it goes to that realization. But I feel the United States prevails. I really do. I feel like it comes back shining in our lifetime. And the astrology shows the same. We've got about 18 months. So until early 2028, it's going to be very uncomfortable, it looks like. Very uncomfortable.
For the U.S. specifically?
For the United States in particular, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of foreign motivation here, as far as other countries that seem to also want that to happen, But the American spirit is so different than any other, I think, in the sense of just the right to individuality and the right to freedom. I personally feel it's like Atlantis. A lot of Atlantis people reincarnated in America. And I think that in some ways, if you believe in those ancient civilizations, we're actually having the second wave of that original war.
When you say Atlantis people, can you describe a little bit more what that means?
Okay. So what it means, the idea is that I believe, you have to do the research for yourself, if you're going to believe, but the Earth had very thriving communities with technology and the highest, from understand telephones, all sorts of things that we assumed it was only this time. There was another continent called Mu, which they call Lemuria now, based on lemurs, but it was called Mu. And Mu was basically the Pacific Rim and all of what we see from California to Japan to that side. And Atlantis was the Atlantic Ocean. And they were just off the coast of, just off the coast of Africa and stretching across almost to Florida. The idea was. So this civilization was seeded by extra-dimensional life. Like the very beginning was where they were given technology, which the extra-dimensionals regretted. So that was the first, they talk about not letting us go too far, too fast. That's the echo of when it went wrong the first time, giving it to Atlanteans. And you had these two factions that you had the ones that want to live in peace and nature, Mu, and you had the ones that wanted technology and control, Atlantis. And there was genetic modifying and all sorts of things. And we know this from several ways. One is that there's a lot of psychics now. I mean, one thing happening is we definitely are seeing the ascension of people's awareness. People's psychic awareness are coming online. They're having visions. I have my clients talking about Atlantis visions all the time, dreams, things like that. So people are remembering, and that's bringing the vibration back for it to be looked at again. But from a karma perspective, if you destroy the world, then karmically you're going to come back and have the opportunity to destroy the world again. And the people who were destroyed have the opportunity to stop that, right?
So how do you know if you were incarnated in Atlantis in a past life? What are the qualities?
Well, there's an interest in technology and innovation as far as the human interest is concerned. But in an astrological chart, if you have major outer planets such as beyond Jupiter, but Jupiter counts, so Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, in the high degrees of Aquarius, okay, there's only one time on the earth when we have that vibration available. And when a person has those planets in those high frequencies, it means they have past life experience in these high vibration frequencies. So we see, a lot of I think people born probably in the 2000s, and late 1990s had these high Aquarius planets. And so from an astrological perspective, that's how we look at it. Now, on a personal reading level, you get an image right away.
What is your unique type of intuition? Are you someone that feels things in your body, sees a vision for something, hears a voice in your head, or just knows? This quiz is going to help you understand your unique intuitive type and how you can take action on it in creating a career that honors your intuitive gifts. All right, let's get into it.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance, close your eyes and listen.
For any of my girlies with aches, pains, needing sleep support, or stress relief, have you ever tried CBD? So CBD is completely non-psychoactive. So it's something that you can take when you're going to work, you're with your kids, you're going to the gym, and it's really helpful for backaches or whatever your issue is. It's natural. And what I love about this specific brand, Cornbread, is they offer the first ever USDA organic CBD gummies. So these are vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free with no artificial flavors or preservatives. And you can use them for stress relief, better recovery, or improved sleep. I mean, CBD works in so many different ways, so you can actually take their quiz on their website to get custom recommendations for you. And best of all, they're offering 30% off for High Self podcast listeners. So head over to cornbreadhemp.com/Sahara and use code Sahara for 30% off your first order. That's cornbreadhemp.com/Sahara. You can find that link in the show notes.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance, close your eyes and listen.
Yeah, I feel like Atlantean people are really good with merging science and spirituality.
That's a good point.
I think of Deepak Chopra, Dr. Joe Dispenza. They're very great with technology.
Yeah.
They're really great with like systems in general, I find. Like, I think of like the ancient Greek times, because I was definitely in Atlantis in a past life, but I feel more Lemurian in my soul. And I feel like for me, and I'm curious what Lemuria is like for you, but for me, it's really the frequency of the heart, the feminine, the tribes.
Yes.
Like my memories there, it was like, we're like swimming in these pools, natural pools together and swinging on ropes and drumming and gathering. And I also can remember someone urging me to get on a ship to leave and saying, you need to get out, you need to get out. And I said, no, I'm going to stay with my people. And I believe I likely died when Lemuria sank there. Then I remember a separate lifetime that I was in these really cold and more navy blue waters and seeing this like almost a Greek palace. It almost looked like the Little Mermaid palace. And it was like logos, like almost like literature, sciences, this, that. And I remember I could like hear whispers of these older men talking, but they wouldn't tell us what it was about. And I remember looking down at my feet and they were like duck feet, but I had legs. And I remembering in Lemuria that we always talked about what was happening in the civilization, and here that these older men decide and we don't know, and longing for those warmer waters.
Precisely. From what I hear, that's exactly what it was like. Lemuria was like the continent that was tied to the land, wasn't adopting the technology, wasn't importing goods and services from Atlantis. And so ultimately, powers that be in Atlantis saw these tribal idiots that will not get on board, growth and innovation. I mean, we've seen this in imperialism, right? It's basically Atlantis was imperializing the whole world. In fact, Atlantis had colonies all over where we see now major centers of intelligence: Peru, China, Egypt. They were constantly trading with the natives of those lands, and Mu is one of the places they were trading with as well. But Mu did what Mu wanted to do and was kind of stubborn in a Hawaiian way. Like Hawaii is very, to me, what Mu is. That just the lays and the pineapple, and we're just going to eat and go to bed, like type of thing. What's interesting is like a lot of clients that I do readings for, they incarnate on both continents. They would sort of learn both sides of the conflict, much like you see, Christians and pagans reincarnating back and forth from both sides. So I'm not surprised. And Mu was actually known for its experimentation with genetics and animals. So all of the Egyptian, half bird, half this, apparently all originated from Mu. Like and the mermaid was a Mu creation. And
yeah, I remember we would shapeshift into being mermaids.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
That's why I dress like a mermaid all the time.
Okay.
And I am a mermaid. It's like from that lifetime. Like I really feel I'm here to bring the Lemurian frequency back to Earth.
Yeah, I believe you are. And Lemurians were also the ones who made all the ancient records. So the idea is Lemurian crystals is where they're stored, and those are stored on the Sphinx allegedly and things like that. So
what do you think we have going on right here?
Nice. Wow, that's cool. Where'd you get it?
On Etsy.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
The ancient Lemurian store of Etsy,
I'm seeing you digging, yeah.
I dug it out of the ocean. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, I feel there's a split, and you've been talking about the split, and it's just becoming more clear that I feel there's this world that's almost like Atlantean, AI, tech, crypto. And it's like a lot of spiritual people too, but it's in this very future thinking way, Aquarian way. And then I see this other split that's like primal, earth, plants, sacred, ancient. And now this is like the light of the both, right? On the shadow of both is this, on the tech side, it's like get an AI girlfriend, don't interact with anyone, get everything Uber Eats and Postmates and everything to you, and live on TikTok and, completely cut off from even having a human body, never travel again because you could do it on VR. That. And then on the other side of maybe that very primal way is them rejecting, right? Like, oh no, you can't do this because it's not of the earth, and you can't. And then it's becoming so like niche that a lot of people are like, oh, like what we think of as a hippie, right? So then a lot of people are like, well, if it means I have to like live on the land and farm for myself, I don't want to do that either. So then I feel like people feel like they have to choose one side or the other. What do you see in this split? Integration,
honestly. I mean, I think Star Wars had it. We'll live in the desert, but robots will do all the work. I think that even the organic people will have robots do all the work because you just said it. They don't want to do the work. Like no one wants to dig dishes and build log cabins. That was, so I feel like the technology will, but there's also, you have to understand there's spiritual technology. I think that's the difference. Like our bodies, our chromosomes are built, there's technology built and designed by spirit. And so in a way we'll be technology too, which is the technology that levitated stones for Egypt, or carved crystals that were, 5 stories tall for Atlantis. These are using principles of the earth and natural energies of the earth. Even Atlantis was messing with the earth too much, to the effect of allegedly their first, because they had 3 disasters. Only the last one is the one that gets all the fame. But they nearly destroyed themselves the first time. And apparently the earth tilted at that point. They literally are said to be responsible for a tilted earth. It wasn't tilted allegedly before.
Wow.
But literally moved the earth. Yeah. So they were they were tapped into the earth and natural energies too. I'd say we're much more of a poison society now than they were. Well, the tilt of the earth thing would make total sense, because the difference between Vedic and Western astrology is accounting for whether there's a tilt in the Earth's axis or not. So if that was put in at a certain time. Yeah. That's it's interesting how it happens that way. Yeah. Yeah. You have 2 schools of thought. So ultimately, I think we're going to be more merged than we are imagining right now. I think in the very beginning, you sort of take your sides in the classroom, but then you start missing each other and you want things that the other has. So I honestly think that this idea of destruction of the earth and starting all over, and, living this cold reality are really all creative fantasies of the Dark Ages. It's still Dark Ages fantasy. And until you personally have begun to feel brighter and lighter and ascend into a happier place, you don't even see that there's other alternatives that are just as alluring, right? So you can have robots and be organic, and not marry them, right? Yeah.
Not make them your girlfriend. What do you think of there being another global health scare, like another COVID? Do you see that?
My team doesn't. I have a team of psychics, Serious Joy. We don't feel that.
Okay.
We don't feel like that can happen again. The idea is that if it happens, it just keep happening in waves. But humans adapt incredibly quickly, believe it or not. And I don't feel like the world population would tolerate it. I mean, you're maybe proposing this beyond our control. But I also feel like, even this last one, there's a lot of cures that have been around since 1920 that was helping that particular virus. And through, the desire to control medication, those were taken away from us. So there were solutions to that virus right out of Mother Earth that we weren't allowed to use, right?
Yes. And I feel like that actually awoke in a lot of people, the way that it was treated and the actual misinformation of it and all of that. Do you see there being a rise in natural disasters?
To some degree, the Earth is about to go through some changes, which, everyone knows. I say everyone is, the extra dimensionals know that. I think our governments know it. I honestly think they must by some of the choices they're making. And, even this, have you noticed a migration off the coasts? Like people leaving New York, people leaving California, moving to the center, just feeling that it's time to do that. To me, that's when the people just start doing it on their own and continuing it, even after COVID, just like rats leaving a ship, you start to go, obviously everyone seems to know something that we're not talking about. But I don't think anything traumatic. So catastrophic that we would, that we fall apart. I really don't feel that way. Just little pockets,
What do you see for relationships in this new paradigm? Do you think that marriage is going to continue to be a thing? How do you see relationships really forming?
That's interesting, actually, you bring that up, because we've been talking about that ourselves. And it seems like it's going to be more poly in the sense that, the idea of marriage and wife, husband, all that, isn't that a Christian invention? Like to some degree, allegedly the family unit was created by the Syrians. The Syrian system came and taught us how to take care of our kids and set up structures. But even from what I understand, that structure was you have the baby handed to your the parents, so a lot of what we see, in more natural cultures. But it also seems like people are kind of awake to having all these relationships, right? Whether you're, active with all of them. I don't know if you're active sexually with all of them, but even I am a person has a very close relationship to my past life wives, and anyone I'm dating now, I'm honest. I've got, it's not this lifetime, but there's an honor there. There's respect there. So we're starting to develop the boundaries of necessary to, not be children and worry about, certain things and have the maturity of how to handle that kind of thing, what you do and don't do. So it seems like there's it's going to be some sort of a poly thing, not at once, but this idea that maybe not till death do you part.
Right. Maybe a series of relationships throughout your life that best serve that chapter.
We're going back again. A lot of my clients, going back has become the baby boomers.
Going back to exes?
Baby boomers are quite often, and this is a theme in readings, where they're falling in love back with their high school sweetheart after they got married to the narcissist and and had 2.5 children and the horrible divorce. And it turns out the first love was the one they wanted all along. So it's cycling back to the beginning. So it's interesting to watch. Yeah.
If you're interested in diving deep into shadow work, ancestral healing, tuning into your intuition, Ayurveda, ancient wisdom, ceremonies, rituals, and so much more, then you are designed to be a spiritual life coach. This is someone that is a guide, an oracle, a person who dives people deeper into their own truth. You powerfully ask people questions to dive them deeper into their own understanding and use your intuitive gifts, whether you are someone that feels, sees, hears, or senses, or knows. And this is exactly what we train you to do in Highest Self Institute's new Spiritual Life Coach certification. Over the next 6 months, you'll be diving deep with myself and my team in learning all of the tools and modalities to create a private practice as a spiritual life coach. And you'll be coached every single week, one-on-one with your peers, to actually apply these tools into your own life. So imagine how far you will be 6 months from now, every single week, diving into your shadows, your healing, your intuition, your dharma, and so much more. You know, when you're in silence and all of a sudden you get this aha realization that completely shifts the course of your life? Imagine if you actually created space for that and were coached by someone who took you deeper into your truth every single week. So the way the training is created is every week you'll receive a module from myself and my co-founder, Dr. Neeta, teaching about all of the tools and practices, including our highest self method of spiritual life coaching, which is only found here at the Institute. Then you'll have a live Q&A call with us where you can ask any of your questions. I will also be laser coaching you. So this is the only container that I personally coach in, and the realizations that you will have and see other people have truly are a force field. Then there is a weekly live practice pod where you will actually be able to practice in breakout groups the coaching practices of that week. And then you'll be able to receive feedback to really give you confidence in coaching, which is something I have never seen in a coaching institute before. And our unique approach to spirituality is ancient and feminine. So if you are drawn to the body, the womb, the heart, the intuition, love, beauty, ceremony, ritual, and art as a spiritual pathway, then you are on a divine feminine spiritual path. And this looks very different than the hyper masculine or new age spirituality that is what most of the space is. So we really created this curriculum by women for women, honoring our femininity. And we also don't stay surface level. We dive deep. You know how we do it here on the podcast. Imagine going even deeper into the how and giving you the tools and practices to share with other people. That's so fascinating. Yeah, I've definitely seen that, but I wonder if I was thinking maybe it's the familiarity of that person.
Right.
Because I feel like dating today in this Aquarian age is very impersonal with dating apps.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the number one way people are actually meeting each other these days. Whereas before it was like kind of fringe, but now it's like almost weird to meet them in person, you know?
It is.
So I feel like there's this overwhelm of like, there's these pictures, but I don't even know what the person feels like. At least I knew what my ex was like, you know? So right. Yeah, it's fascinating because I wonder back in these ancient civilizations, like how they did it and even what their lifespans were.
I think there's a lot more spirituality awareness back then. I think even for me. So again, the evolution to me is being aware that your spirit has an agenda of its own. And so you're meeting someone that you knew in a past life and you're open to them having a certain role in your life. And you're giving more credibility to the ones that are spiritually aligned with you as well. I think in those old cultures, they were very aware of, that this particular type of relationship was coming or that they were destined for it. They were taught to honor those senses instead of dismiss them because not scientific. And I think with the dating apps is really funny. I don't think that's going to last much longer. Personally, I mean, I think it'll last in the sense of, it'll be a thing, right? Just like going to bars now is still a thing, but it's not, right? Like people aren't dating in bars anymore. I don't think people will be dating in apps. The big reason is because you get close in a virtual way with them. And so you build this virtual mental relationship, really. It's really a mental relationship. You might as well be like, 1942 writing letters to someone across the sea, because there was no real, energetic connection. So I have a feeling there's going to be a tipping point where the younger generations are going to want that energetic connection. They're going to poo-poo that they can't have it, and they'll look less on relationships that started that way. And if you've ever done, I'm sure you've done dating app, it's like you build up this rapport, then you get in front of their actual energy and you're like, what is this? Like often it's like, they lied to me. No, you were in a condition where you were going through electrons. It wasn't real, right? You weren't feeling the real vibe. So it is with a shock and doesn't usually last because it wasn't built organically.
How can you, based looking on a birth chart, see your past lives?
Ooh, that's a big question. There's a lot of signs and symbols that point to past lives. Chiron is the number one. Chiron is the planet that you have, Chiron is where you've had a series of mistakes. Usually you have a huge trauma that then leads to an overreach and then leads to another trauma. So you're sort of like bouncing back and forth, lifetime and lifetime and lifetime. And
Mine's in Cancer and my South Node's in Cancer.
Yeah. Yeah. My South Node is Cancer. That's what we have in common, right? Yeah. Which is hard. Like, which means that you're tied to the emotions of it. You can't get over the emotions of it. Right? So wherever Chiron is the state of awareness, the science or state of awareness that has also is like the accomplice in the problem, right? The thing that's not being paid attention to enough, or the thing that's the other partner's not paying attention to, but one partner is, and that partner who is expecting to bond with one who isn't, and build that bridge. And I think in some regards, unless you have the tools to build the bridge, I don't think we should. Like if it doesn't naturally, organically connect, there's a reason. You know what I mean? You can build that bridge in little pockets, but so Chiron is a big one. That's the number one, and you won't really overcome Chiron. And age 38, Chiron has a square. So that's when you start to get a grip of okay, this is starting to become a pattern now. But at 49, 50, that's when we have our Chiron return. And that's when we finally have the full 360 understanding of like this huge series of wounds that we have. Then there's these other wounds that come up as well. We have Black Moon Lilith, which represents trauma, fear, terror, basically the Halloween, the horror shop of life. There's an oscillating Lilith, which is like a hint of it. There's Waldemath, which is another dust cloud. That's a hint. There's like another wound that I call like a bruise. But you can actually look at planets and see a lot of past life stories too, because you can see in the chart that they had these wounds, and then you can see how other parts of themselves adapted to those wounds. So Saturn will tell you stuff, whatever you're trying to have power over, there's a reason you're trying to have power over that part of your life. Whatever you have knowledge over, Jupiter, there's a reason why you went off and studied for lifetimes in that direction. They are echoes of the past lives. So you have the core causes, and you have the planets that are the effects.
I don't know if you remember but when I first did a reading with you, you told me that in a past life, I was like the mama of this giant ashram because I have a high degree number, which you call step number, which I want to dive into, of Cancer. Mm-hmm. I think I'm like a 28.
Yeah.
So it's like the highest level of motherhood you could go, which is like being the mother of an entire ashram. But you said that I saw the corruption of that guru. So this is why I've kind of come back in this more feminine way and like, hey, we're all our own gurus. We're all our own teachers. So can you share how the degree number of that Chiron as well as South Node and even the degree numbers tell us how many past lives we've had there?
Okay. So one thing I discovered in my research in astrology as a young astrologer was that the higher the number of the degrees represented the more awareness that the client carried with them around that topic. So if you have a higher number, you have more lifetimes, you've created more awareness. They have a lot of people do past life regressions, and they watch people through heaven, and heaven has small orbs and has big orbs. So we're starting to feel like, you literally grow in light over lifetimes. You're bigger, you're wider, you're brighter. And then when you incarnate in physical, it's represented by a higher degree, more consciousness. So 28 is the highest 10. So that's more like, that's the fertile cow. That's the mama that puts out lots of babies, that has the whole flock, so to speak, and the experience with it. And that's a person who can hold the emotional tone. That's what that is. To hold the tone for a whole community. Amma, for instance, would be a 28, right? She's like a 28 this lifetime, for sure. Hugging everyone on the earth, I'd say so.
So if we look at our sun sign, our moon sign, our rising sign, we look at the degree numbers, it tells us how much experience we have being that specific sign.
That experience in that state of awareness. So, which usually involves that sign, but it doesn't have to. You could be a cold Capricorn that is locked in a prison and learns empathy and becomes incredibly emotionally intelligent, even though that person was operating as a Capricorn that was all business and just wants to follow the rules, right? So you're not locked into it, but yes, ultimately the signs, my perspective of the signs is they're the 12 states of human awareness. Like when we come into this incarnation, we have 12 vehicles that can kind of read the room and read ourselves at the same time. Cancer is emotion, Gemini's thought, Aries is ego energy. And so when we look at the chart, if you have planets that are high up in the high, basically it comes down to the decan. So from 0 to 9, you are a beginner. You're just getting started. You haven't had the time or energy or investment in past lives to learn that particular state of awareness. So the second 10, which is from 10 to 19, are the people who are usually the hardest workers that use the energy to make things, to build things, commerce. They're the proficient uses of it. And most of the world is in that proficient range as far as their planets are concerned.
Interesting.
And then the highs above 20 and above, 20 says that the 2 is emotion. So the thing about mastery there is that when you put emotion first and then add something after it, emotion is a reflection, energetic reflection of your whole being. So the masters 20 and above, they're considering their whole being and which means they're considering everything, which is the master path, right?
So for someone to look this up, they'll look up their chart, look at their sun, moon, rising, look at the degree number. If it's in the first 10,
0 to 9.
0 to 9, it's their first rodeo in that state of awareness.
Right.
If it's in the teens, they're in the proficient path of that specific state of awareness. If it's in the 20s, they're in the
master path,
master level. And is it like, let's say I'm 28 degrees Cancer. So I was probably Cancer many, many lifetimes. Now I've come back as Capricorn. Was it because I hit the max that I decided to go Capricorn in this life?
Well, no, Capricorn would counterbalance the Cancer. So that's the opposite sign. So what ends up happening is the soul starts to tilt. And so you have to go and develop the other aspect, because the way you manage your states of awareness, they all have opposites. So what manages emotions really is a decision that you're going to heal. You have to make the decision, put down the line, be that tough Capricorn, right? And same vice versa. If you have this stoic Capricorn that just will not see the light, they have to be introduced to their own feelings and see how they affect people and how they hurt people maybe or not, or, or too cold, what that does. So really, I think it's common. You'll see that the client I have a ton of clients that has been building in opposites the whole time.
Right.
Like intelligently, seemed to be the plan.
Yeah, it would make sense, because then I have Capricorn as my north node and, sun, moon, Saturn, Mars, everything as 7 planets in Capricorn. Have you seen anyone with more Capricorn than me?
No, actually, I was talking to one of my own staff about that too, actually, just before the show. But you reminded me of why. If you were like I'm a level 28 Cancer, it took all those planets to counterbalance that. Took all those planets, all settled. And you have planets from the bottom to the top. That's in crazy. Capricorn too. So you've got some simmering on the fire slow. You've got some ready to push the envelope.
So what is more truly you then, your south node or your north node?
Well, they're both of you. I mean, it is you. I think I've had some new thoughts about the nodes. I mean, the nodes, first of all, are the combination of the heart and the sun and the moon. So it's based on the ecliptic and the moon's orbit and how they make an X here and they make an X here when they cross, which means that when all of your heart and all of your feelings come together, you have this very strong gravitational point, top, north, and south, right?
So your north node is really what you're here to become in this lifetime.
I actually believe it's what you must practice in order to become who you want to become. It's the tool you must use. It's what you always forget to do, so to speak, right? And the south node is a lot of wisdom. And that's the thing that has changed in the last 5 or 6 years. When I got into astrology, south node was like, ooh, taboo, get out of there, run for your life, it's horrible. Now the idea is like, no, you were really good at that. You've done it for many, many years. So it's sort of like time to close the book on that business. It's time to come full circle, call it wisdom, stop wallowing in it because you're afraid of going to the other side. So your particular, your nodes are literally, right? Your progression. You said you have the 28 degree Cancer, right? So you have been there. And I would imagine that you have, you can share it or not, but like, you have been progressing from being very, very sensitive and taking things personally and, worrying about everyone to just worry about myself and my business and what I need to do, which is the Capricorn perspective. Yeah.
Totally. And it's interesting because my sun supports my north node. So my sun and my moon are also Capricorn and my north node. So it's almost like I have maybe like a little leg up because I have the support of being my north node. Whereas I have some friends that their sun is the same as their south node.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, because their heart, in that case, if the sun is on the south node, it's going to take a lot. Sun is the love, it's your heart chakra. So if the heart chakra is next to a painful thing, it has 2 sides to it. One, the heart suffers for a long time until it realizes that it's actually the hero of that situation, that it's there to actually help the other thing, not be affected by the other thing. But sometimes I think it's the client needs a lot of love. Like you're not going to get out of that without a lot of love. And so it's necessary to just literally liquor it up with love.
Okay. You just said the sun was the heart.
Mm-hmm.
I've understood the moon as the heart.
The moon is emotions, the reflection of the heart.
Okay.
The companion of the heart. So the sun is the heart. It's the heart of the solar system. It's the heart of the soul's system. So God, universe, consciousness comes through the heart chakra. This is where we are connected to creator is through our heart. It's what makes us unique. It's one of the benefits of being a human because it's so large, and we're very close to our sun. So we live very close to our sun. If we lived on Pluto or Uranus, we would have, if you have creatures living on that planet, I would say they're probably loveless. They don't feel the light. They don't feel the warmth. They don't vibrate off of that. So the sun is your heart and is the source of all creation. All the other states of awareness, like the planets, all orbit around the sun. And that right there is the core issue with humans right now, is that we have orbited everything around Mercury, the mind. And we have been talked into letting everything orbit around Mercury. And you got this little tiny pea that goes around the sun is now controlling the sun, right? Which is eventually going to break on its own. You can't, this world of, technology and ignoring your heart that you're describing, I think it'll collapse upon itself. Anyways, it goes against the nature of consciousness, right? And then the moon, what does the moon do? The moon reflects the sun. So our emotions, the moon is the mother, the sun is the father, if you want to look at it that way. And the moon represents our feelings and our reflection of, how we reflect on it. Like, that hurt me, that didn't hurt me, I really like that. So it's a mirror to and place to examine and explore from a vibrational perspective to read the frequencies. Because I believe that a feeling that you have is the sensation in the body of the vibration of the energy, right? So when we feel sad, our body is simulating through hormones and, tricks and tips of biology, recreating the experience of being in the frequency if you were, let's say, not in a body.
Can you just share a little bit about your perspective on rising signs?
Rising signs are sort of they're tied to the root chakra. So, which by the way is going away, from what we understand, and when I say we understand, I've been just doing tons of research, reaching out to other practitioners, different modalities. I've been working a lot with people who channel aliens, like different galactic beings who come in and just lecture on how it's all constructed. So when you're born, you are born tied to the earth. Mother Earth is your womb, and you take from her molecules and you take from her energy and you craft a physical version of yourself. And that crafting of the energy is determined by the constellation rising on the horizon at the moment of your birth, which we call the rising sign. So, if in the old days, if you went outside the teepee, you would have seen that sign rising on the horizon, which, by the way, it's not the constellation of that sign. It's the 100 billion stars and all of the galaxies' contribution in that sector of space that they just marked with a symbol to represent this sector of space. So there's a lot of misunderstandings about it. But it means that it's your ego. So, and your ego has this, is imprinted with survival memories. So your rising sign is sort of it's basically how you decided how you're going to, I don't want to say weapon up, but it's basically how you're going to defend yourself in this life, how you're going to represent yourself in this life, and the fears that you have. And those fears come from the 12th house cusp. So the 12th house cusp is actually the spiritual wound. So for instance, if I have a Leo rising, so I want to come out bright and love and sun. And why do I want to do that? Because I'm wounded in Cancer. And so it's the answer to the Cancer that really my rising is. So the rising sign is really the answer to the 12th house cusp.
Well, my rising is in Sagittarius, so I also chose a fire sign.
Yeah, they're better.
Yeah.
I think they're more fun. And which would mean, that boundaries, betrayals, backstabbing would be the wounds.
For Sagittarius?
Yeah, because Scorpio would rule the 12th house cusp.
No wonder those Scorpios ruining my life.
You're learning.
Exactly.
Yeah. Scorpio's energy I don't like either. I'm not saying Scorpios. I'm just saying what Scorpio's rule is division, like how you divide, how you separate, how much is the divide. In some ways that doesn't even exist in the heaven realm. So I
feel like everyone in dating, they're like, everyone you talk to, they're like, I stay away from Scorpios and Geminis. It's like the two signs.
No, I'm just
Can you share a little why?
Well,
we love you. Like, I love my Scorpio girlfriends, but I'm just trying to stay away from dating them,
I think it's going to change. I think you're about to see, mark my words. I think Scorpios going forward are going to have a complete different reputation. And they're going through that change right now. And they hate it. And they're bitching about it every minute, and they're making everyone else pay in the room, so they're still being their own tactics. But I think, and Gemini is also, so Scorpios just have the ability to draw the line and cut you and just make that put up that cold wall close it, or or get you naked, like to take things off, take off your armory or off your weaponry, or to wall you up, to imprison, to to push away. And so they can hold a boundary like no other. Scorpio. Every sign has like a superpower, and so when a Scorpio says no, for the most part, it probably will be no. That is all. So Scorpios have abused their power, but the universe has been working on them since the 80s. The Pluto and Scorpio generation, which are the millennials, are actually going to be the generation that reestablishes all the rules. So when they come into power, right now Gen X is coming into power. So Gen X is Pluto and Libra. So this is the relationship intelligence. The Pluto Libra generation were the generation where all their families divorced. They saw the separation. They saw the relationships ending. They saw the dysfunction. They were sort of allowed to watch all that. Now you sort of, now new children are really guarded. They don't hear their parents cuss. The Gen X heard all of that. They were let in on that, and they have been going through and working through relationship issues for the earth. And so I think, we're going to see relationship changes in our lifetime. We're seeing it now, but I think part of it's because of the Pluto Librans are kind of just what they're doing is they're determining where the line is, Pluto, and everyone else is following.
So when you're looking at compatibility, and I know there's a lot there, do you focus on their Venus sign? Do you look at their rising? I've also heard, and I'm curious your take on it, that Venus is the woman you're compatible with, and Mars is the men you're compatible with. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, a high level of compatibility, how do you look at it?
Venus and Mars are basically how you process those two spectrums of gender, and those two spectrums of gender actually have to do with giving and receiving. Mars is giving, Venus is receiving. That's it. So Venus is inhale, Mars is exhale. These are primary forces of the universe. And so Venus and Mars kind of tell you in the chart how they'll end up kissing, like how they'll come together in a tactile way, what they'll be attracted to, the sexual attraction potential there. But it's very...
So looking at their Venuses together, or you would look at, if you're a woman, you would look at his Mars, like how would you look at that together?
I would look at where his Mars is in your chart. Like, where his Mars is in your chart would tell me where he is giving, where he's received, where he's supporting, where he's being strong, where he's showing up.
And when you say where, do you mean the house?
The houses.
Okay.
Yeah. But not just the houses. It's like there can be accomplices. So if his Mars conjoins his Pluto, he's bringing that Pluto drunken bastard into the room too. Like, so you can also look at the energy that's accompanying that energy, and you can look at the energy of how it's held back. But honestly, most compatibility, and this is why I think none of the dating apps have worked around astrology and stuff, is it's all based on the wounds. It's not based on the positives. It's most of the time you look in a couple's chart and you'll see that, oh, her this is on his weakness, and vice versa. So that they're literally sort of holding space for each other's wounds, which means that there's an inevitable expiration date of that relationship, because when those wounds start to heal, the bond that had tied them together starts to move away.
So maybe we look at our Chiron and what our Chiron is, like the sign and the house, and if they have something of that, because then we're willing to do together. Yeah, well, Chiron's kind of interesting because like my Chiron's in Aries. I've never dated an Aries, but maybe it's because the whole energy just disgusts me because I stink at it. You know what I mean? Like someone's like, oh, I'm going there. It's more like Pluto, for instance. So if Venus or Mars are near one of each other's Plutos, so Pluto's an emptiness, right? It's basically a wormhole. It's basically a black hole in your soul. It's got this energy that pulls things in, creates a divot. You fall, you trip into it. Mine's in my 12th house.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's also a place that the soul has done zero work. Okay.
So look at where your Pluto is, and that's where you haven't done your work.
You've done well in past lives. It's just like gym class. You just kept skipping out. So my Pluto's in the house of money and wealth.
That's second house.
In the second house, but it's in the third deck in the second house. So you can actually tell to what degree of the scale. So for me, it's around manufacturing, big business, corporate stuff. Never done it, never cared. And from what I understand, in my past lives, I hadn't. And I didn't care about money for really the first part of my life. I was like, it's all spirit, who cares? As my credit rating tanked, because I didn't care. So it's where you just don't care at all at first. I have no knowledge of it. But that becomes a real problem because wherever Pluto is, it represents where the end of the line of consciousness. So Consciousness is always going higher, but that means that the floor is always having to go higher also, right? Pluto is that floor that has to go higher. So for instance, Pluto's in Capricorn. And so the last time Pluto was in Capricorn was the birth of the United States. And people think that the birth of the United States was about Britain and control, but it's really about money and taxes. We didn't want to pay taxes. We didn't want people to have control over our money and our own power. And so Pluto now back in Capricorn says, from a galactic perspective, Earth, where you are the dumbest, is with business, control, government. This is where you're the dumbest. And with Pluto in that place, you must now bring this bottom up, right? In fact, the United States has Pluto in its chart in the second house also, because the United States was very completely ignorant at the time on how to create an economy.
So do you find that, I've also heard that your Venus sign is how you like to love. So for example, my Venus is in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
So what I took from that is I love like having deep conversations, talking about things and coming up with ideas. So would it be best for me to find another Venus and air sign person, or?
If you find a Venus in the same element, it's almost guaranteed to have a camaraderie, a compatibility on a base level. They're going to get along. I look at Venus as how we exchange love. It's the in and out of love. Because Venus controls the door, closes the womb or opens the womb, right? And I look at Venus as how we open to stuff. So your Venus personally, sans your relationships, is where you open up to the world, how you open up to the world. The degree of the Venus, the step numbers, tell you the notes that the client must actually hit for the Venus to open up. And those are the two. So if you had a Venus at 25, that means that you're not going to open up unless you can relate emotionally to the person and intellectually to the person. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to open up. And of course, if it's more numbers, it's more complicated. And if it's more complicated, it's because the soul has been learning and learning and learning and refining this process over time. So your master Venuses have been there, done that, tried it all. And now they're very picky.
Oh, that's why I'm so picky. I must have a very high Venus degree number. It makes sense now.
Yeah. If you're
I'm like, no.
Yeah, been there, done that, no. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's just, and that's because you refine your experience and you want the best experience, right?
Right.
I find that when people are having a hard time finding the people that they want, it's maybe because they're not aware of what formula it takes for them to sing, like for them to really feel amazing. And because they're not aware, the universe isn't either. So, if you're looking for love, I would say if you're a woman looking for love, you have to know the degrees of your Venus. You have to know where she is sitting in your chart. You have to know the sign that she's coming through, because these are the qualities of what love has to be for you. That's where you're comfortable. You're just not going to open up. We've all been to like a place where you feel uncomfortable and we just don't open up, like a dinner party and you don't know anyone there. And so you're just kind of quiet and you're eating to yourself. That's Venus. That's Venus energy that's pulling you back and saying, it's withdrawing from. That's how Venus protects. The mother withdraws the children, the babies into, away into the forest. Venus is the same thing. We withdraw, we sort of pull in and stop allowing people's love to get to us. And a lot of people use Venus as a poor man's boundary because they don't understand how to set up the situation for that person not to be there in the first place. So once the predator or the person that's dangerous is in, the only defense is to not allow them to get to you, to not allow them access to you.
So there is so much more here in this episode. In fact, we went down a rabbit hole that lasted for another full hour plus. So I've broken it up into 2 episodes. So be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast so you can get notified next week when part 2 comes out. You are not going to want to miss the end of this conversation. We go into the shadows of every single one of the types, talking about the things that are unspoken, the things that we've noticed about our friends, our exes, even ourselves. So you're going to want to hit subscribe so you can get notified for part 2 of this episode, and I'll see you there.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition.